I can't begin to imagine the adrenaline rush that came with this moment. At the end of the match, a man suffered cardiac arrest but was revived after 4 defibrillator hits. Even the fans are making comebacks. This is a truly special club. On the other hand, the fact that this didn't go in tells you all you really need to know about how Arsenal's semi-final went.
You've knocked out all the Premier League opposition in this competition.
Yeah, the League of Farmers, no? We are the League of Farmers.
He's genuinely not wrong. Beaten every English team in this year's competition. Ironically, the only team that did beat them was Arsenal on match day 2. Of course, the Inter-Barcelona match will be remembered more vividly due to the insanity of how it went down, but we really were treated to some incredible levels of play and incredible levels of parity that we don't often see at this level. When was the last time that over both semi-final legs, both goalkeepers have strong claims to the man of the match? A Paris Saint-Germain vs Inter Milan final is a final that I can get behind. Hello, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. I'm Tinashe. Guys, what a week it's been. Not only do we get treated to some incredible football, but we get a GTA 6 trailer. I just need to live for like another year or so, and I'm good. Because no one watching this video will be alive when GTA 7 comes out. Conceivably, it's not gonna happen. But we're here to talk about football, and let's jump straight into it. Barcelona Inter Milan. I knew we were in for a cracking game as soon as DiMarco glued himself to Yamal from minute 1. He had to make sure that he knew he was there, and I must say that DiMarco and Mkhitaryan did a fantastic job on Yamal in keeping him quiet throughout that first half. Barcelona, I would say, started off the game a little bit better than Inter, but after about 10 minutes or so, it was all Inter Milan traffic. Genuinely, I couldn't believe just how much more aggressive and hungry Inter were. Pedri was misplacing passes, he was taking heavy touches. It was kind of similar to the first leg in a lot of senses, and in how Inter came out with this really determined game plan, and how Barcelona were a little bit passive in letting opportunities just flow past them in some senses. You think that Barca would have adjusted their game plan a little bit to counteract that, but they didn't. Inter, on the other hand, did. The one thing that they did do that we didn't see them do last week was how they were picking their moments so much more concisely, especially when it came to that high line. Last week I was saying that Inter's timing was just a bit off because their ball players were second guessing themselves just before the release. There was no hesitation this time whatsoever. It was very clear that the word from the very top was get the ball out early when we're trying to get in behind. Big man Dumfries was back at it again, getting the assist for the first. It's like deja vu with the amount of space he's given here. Lautaro scores, and then in the process of winning the pen, we can see how they expose Barca's high line yet again, and it's 2 up. Deja vu, I tell you. Every time I make a video about Inter Milan, I feel like I end up saying the exact same thing over and over again. Lautaro Martinez. What a player that man is. What a captain that man is. Not only does he score and create, but the man fights like nobody else. He played this game pretty much on one leg the entire time, and you could see the frustration in his face, the discomfort rather in his face, the discomfort in how he was moving, the contribution that he made to this team in this game. Invaluable. Now, we don't like to condone or promote players playing through injury because they are going to pay for it later on down the line. I don't know what the situation is looking like, especially as we creep closer to the final and the business end of the season. They probably need him for Serie A because, that's obviously not decided yet, but man, he amazes me every time, I'm sorry. And then on the other hand, we see the frustration on the faces of the Barcelona players towards the end of that first half, 2-0 down. I thought it was only a matter of time before we saw cards coming out for dissent. As a matter of fact, it looked like Inigo Martinez spat on Acerbi, which is obviously a red card offense. And listen, bro, I know Jamie Carragher is your idol and all that, but come on, bro, you're taking this too far. For all the possession that Barcelona had in that first half, they were pretty toothless. Obviously, they were missing Jules Kounde and Alejandro Balde, which were just huge for them. At this point, everyone, myself included, began writing up their essay on the effectiveness on Barcelona's fullbacks. And like I said, personally, I was preparing the grill, but I was humbled. The second half comes along, and as I was thinking this, both fullbacks combined to score and really should have scored twice within 5 minutes to equalize. Inter were clearly not prioritizing the fullbacks as much in order to dedicate more manpower to the more, traditionally dangerous men in that Barcelona side, and this was ultimately their undoing. It was also apparent that after the break, they just seemed to gas out. The commentary that I was watching seemed to consistently keep talking about the age gap between the two sides, and to me at least, it didn't seem like Barca were getting that much of a benefit from their younger squad until the second half. It's deja vu, right? As Barca grew more and more into the game, I was wondering why Inzaghi didn't do more grouped substitutions instead of drip feeding them throughout the game. But listen, what do I know? I'm going to lean more towards the belief that Inzaghi always knew what he was doing, rather than the idea that this was just a night of pure random madness that no amount of foresight could predict. But more on that later, because we're only at 2-1. Yamal started having more joy, everything was falling apart for Inter, and Barca should be kicking themselves that they did not take a more commanding lead from this period. Olmo makes it 2-2. When Rafinha made it 3-2, I was convinced that it was game over. Barca was so full of running at this point, and I think they'd only made 1 or 2 substitutions. And then I think I woke up everyone in my apartment building when I screamed at this equalizer. Thierry Henry was right. What's he doing? What was he doing there? This was insane, but again, I was convinced that Inter stood no chance. 30 more minutes against a Barcelona side that still had 4 or 5 more subs to make, plus players already on the pitch that looked like they could play another 90 just by themselves. Genuinely, there was no chance for them. But I was wrong. Again, dread it, run from it. Fratesi still arrives. Bayern Munich were looking at their TV screen shocked and bewildered moments before the PTSD kicked in. Marcus Thuram quietly had a remarkable 2-leg tie, non-stop running, barely any service as a striker, obviously due to how Inter plays and how dynamically they set up. He doesn't play as a traditional 9, so this maybe isn't that big of a talking point, but still, he was put in this game to run and press, and he earned his wages. And then this run in extra time from him is what won the game for Inter. Fratesi feints, so Kubasi loses all balance, and it was just a great goal. And I am convinced that we would have had a 5th goal for Inter had the referee not blown for the end of the first half of extra time, as Bastoni plays the most phenomenal ball through to, I think it was Fratesi, but I can't really remember. Why'd he do that? I've spent all the time in this video talking about the events that went down, the goals, all of that, but I haven't even spoken about the man of the match, at least my man of the match, Jan Sommer. Yamal is going to have his face on a dartboard for a while after that night. You just know it. He saved everything. What a player. Actually, scratch that. He's awful. Barca scored 6 goals against him over 2 legs. Ugh. Inter, you know what to do. Just ship him off to United. Please? Yamal was playing hero ball towards the end of normal time and extra time, and maybe he should have thought a bit more about the team and what the team needed him to do rather than try and go it alone, but I'm not going to talk too much about it. He's literally 17. Alright, now for some final notes. Great performance by the referee, again, as was the case last week with Clement Turpin. Both these guys, fantastic at what they do. He probably should have given more yellow cards to the Inter Milan players, especially DiMarco and Bastoni, who should have had cards for accumulation at the very least. Bastoni did get one at the very end of the game, but that was for a cynical tackle on Yamal, and he probably wouldn't have made that tackle if he was already on a yellow card, and maybe Yamal goes through and scores a goal in that scenario that I've just made up. This was a 2-leg tie of just pure passion ball from Inter Milan. Denzel Dumfries was involved in 5 of Inter's 7 goals over this tie. It was just a pure classic tie. Barella did not stop running. Frenkie de Jong as well did not stop running. I'm not sure how many plaudits he's gonna get, but he was phenomenal in these games. It's a shame that he didn't go through. Araujo had a stinker of a game when he came on, and worse yet, he came on for Inigo Martinez, who actually was playing quite well up until that point. Of course, he did have the spitting incident, but you know, you guys already know that I'm pretty much a neutral in this entire situation. Whoever won and went through to the finals doesn't really matter that much to me. But in terms of players, I am quite sad that Rafinha didn't get a chance to go to a final and a chance to win the final, because you know how these things go. His chances of getting the Ballon d'Or now are quite slim. I would say that now you'd probably see a PSG player go into that position now. Probably Ousmane Dembele, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. It's a shame. And even worse for Barcelona, it is possible that this result could set off a chain of events that could be extremely unfortunate for the club, because it's possible that they do not win the league. They play Real Madrid on the weekend. There's a gap of 4 points between them, and there are 4 games left in the league season right now. And we all know that that gap can be eaten up very quickly. I mean, it's not likely that that happens though, right? Right? Inter Milan are carrying Italian football yet again. In the last 8 years, only 2 Italian teams have made it to Champions League finals. Inter Milan are both of those teams. And even more, both of those times came within the last 3 years. And now we move on to PSG and Arsenal. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about this one because it was very similar to last week's game between the two sides. PSG were the better side overall. Arsenal had their chances, but just like Arsenal have done throughout the entire season, whenever they really need to perform, they don't look like they're trying to perform. They don't try and play with any urgency, anyone but Saka at the very least. They don't try and play with urgency. They don't try and push the envelope. It's very strange. I don't think anyone in that Arsenal side other than David Raya and Saka, and I guess Timber did pretty well as well. Everyone else was very passive. Ødegaard was a little bit absent. Rice was getting the ball taken off him very easily. It was Saliba as well. As for PSG, this was a very controlled professional performance from them. Everything they did was so intentional to nullify all the threats that Arsenal posed and keep composure. Saka was out the game for the most part. He did pop up here and there with opportunities, which speaks a bit to the caliber of player that he is. But even still, it wasn't enough. And one of the main reasons why Saka was out the game was because of Kvaratskhelia. What a special player that guy is. Wow, the commitment on display by him, the amount of forward pressing, backtracking that he did, and then he comes up with opportunities, almost scores a goal off the post. Mbappe doesn't do that. Mbappe does not do that for PSG, the work rate and everything else that Kvaratskhelia did for him. For 70 million, this is looking like a steal for PSG. And bear in mind, this guy came to the club 6 months ago. Actually, less than 6 months ago in January. We're still in early May. He looks like he's been there for years. Sloppy play from Arsenal. Partey was not having a good game. Even his long throw-ins couldn't save them. And again, the midfield of PSG was just by far too much to handle for Arsenal. That midfield of Neves, Ruiz, and Vitinha is the real flippin' deal. Damn, and Vitinha is probably my man of the match if he doesn't miss that penalty. And you know what? I'm going to say it. The fact that he missed that penalty made me happy. When I see players take those long run-ups to shoot the ball and just waiting for the keeper to react and the keeper doesn't react, unless it's Bruno Fernandes or Paul Pogba, I'm happy. And listen, I know I might sound like a dinosaur, but I'm right. Vitinha was just everywhere in this game. There was a moment in the second half where he was on the far left-hand side, and he's just weaving through the Arsenal defense before almost getting the ball across towards one of his teammates to slot it into the net. It kind of reminded me of a dribble that Benzema did a couple years ago. I think it was against Atletico Madrid, but I can't remember. Anyway, Hakimi, never a bad performance from my guy over here. It's the kind of calm that comes from knowing that your mom holds all your personal assets and no one can snake you. I don't know if that story was real. It probably wasn't real. It was probably just an internet rumor, but I live for the memes, and that's why I'm here, really. Donnarumma, undoubtedly, over the 2 legs, cumulatively, the man, the definitive man. Saka's gonna put up his dartboard right next to Yamal's dartboard, and it's just gonna be them 2 raging at goalkeepers. This guy is just unbelievable. He's only 26 years old. I just know that in 20, 30 years' time, that scar on his face is gonna be talked about by all the future generations. And the craziest thing is that he got that scar like 6 months ago. We saw this man in the trenches getting that scar. Back to Arsenal, it's really tough for them, man. 3 years now into this incredible run of form that they've been experiencing where you think that they should be winning more things, and I just keep remembering what Patrice Evra said.
Watching Arsenal is watching Netflix, You always wait for the next season.
Another season with nothing to show for it. And you know what? It's not going to get any easier for Arsenal. Man City are going to go out and spunk about £500 million on new players in the off-season and probably come back with a renewed sense of enthusiasm. And you know what? If you haven't been paying attention, Arsenal are only 3 points ahead of City right now in the league. So is this that much of a drop-off year for them? Have Arsenal really been so much better than City in their off year? City probably are going to win the FA Cup this year too. So Liverpool, on the other hand, Arne Slot came in and without that much input in the transfer market has won the league on his first attempt. And you can probably bet that he's going to get a lot of support in the market right now. So And I'm not going to lie to you, I have somewhat enjoyed seeing Arsenal make it this far in this competition, purely for the sake of my brother who is an Arsenal fan and some of my friends who are Arsenal fans. But I'm also quite happy that PSG came in and restored the natural order of things. Can you just imagine if Tottenham Hotspur go on and win the Europa League now? I mean, they're not going to, of course, because Maguire! On to the actual final. PSG have never won. Inter Milan, of course, have won it before, but it hasn't been the case for some time now. And I'm not going to play the favorites game because I'm usually wrong there. But I will say that PSG are the more attacking side, and typically that's where people choose to lay their eggs when it comes to favorites, or the basket they choose to put their eggs in. I'm getting the analogy mixed up right now, but I'm not going to cut this out. Because it's the end of the video and no one's going to be watching at this point anyway. I think that PSG probably are the favorites in that respect, but I'm not going to be that guy that second guesses Inter Milan like I have done in the past and like most people probably did when they were faced up against Barcelona. So, cracking final ahead. Can't wait to see it. We should do a watch along for that one. I'll have to prepare something great for that, but I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you posted. That's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.